Okay, is that turned on?
We're gonna do what?
Is what turned on?
The mic? The mic?
Yeah.
You don't see the blue light on the mic?
No.
It's reflected right back on you.
What? I don't.
The blue light.
Oh, there. Yeah. No, that's good.
It's on.
Okay.
You don't think I know what I'm doing?
I was just asking.
You were just asking. Yeah, you were just asking. Yeah. This one has to go just perfect. I don't want any attitude from her.
I think you're too nervous.
I'm a little too nervous.
We're gonna have fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun.
Am I making you nervous?
When you look at me like that, you are. Okay. This is the anniversary. My anniversary episode. So happy anniversary.
Thank you. Happy anniversary.
Our anniversary was yesterday, which by yesterday I mean day before yesterday. I'm still on my 48-hour schedule.
It was his yesterday.
That's my yesterday. I'm still on my 48-hour schedule. It's actually the 8th. Was our anniversary. And we went and did a very important, very cool thing. First, this is your pocket square for the episode. You see you messed it up. She got to pick it. It looks like it's gray, just like my shirt, but my shirt looks like it's green, like the pocket square. The green is like it's actually green. Anyway,
I think it looks green. I do.
Okay. Okay. You would know. I'm colorblind, so I wouldn't know. Okay, so ages ago, I guess in 2000, I was going through a big battle with my parents that I've talked about on here before called Guardians War. And during Guardians War, I was doing, and she was doing everything to keep me going. During Guardians War, one night, it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. She was just about to go to bed. She had work in the next day. She had class all day the next day. And that started at like probably 9. And we go until like 9 o'clock the next day. But
yeah, I would usually have class all day, and then I'd come home for like a half hour, and then I'd work in the evenings, and then I would usually get home like at 9 or 10. So I had really long days back then, and it was really hard.
Yeah, and then she'd come home to me and have to put me back together again. Well, one particular day, I decided that I got this crazy idea, and the crazy idea was that we would drive from Springfield to Tulsa, which is a little over, it's almost a 3-hour drive, and get big gulps. And we would drive back. Just be on the road and drive.
It's a brilliant idea.
Well,
at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, go get the glasses.
Oh yeah, we need to show them our glasses.
But basically, she wouldn't do it because she's sane and I wasn't. So this year for our anniversary, we decided to go ahead and make that trip. After 21 years, we decided to go ahead and make that trip. So yesterday, we went to Tulsa and got big gulps at these are the glasses. This is how big they were. You can see in comparison to my head,
Look at that.
just how big they are.
Yeah, your head's pretty big.
Show behind your head. When you're saying you have a
Yeah,
normal
show
size
next to
head.
my head. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's proof that my
that's
head is
better.
pretty big. Actually. Okay, so anyway, those are our glasses. I'm going to, we're going to wash them, and we're going to put some, we're going to get some aquarium rocks, and we're going to fill them with aquarium rocks. Hers, she mixed, what did you mix?
Okay, so I have been drinking coffee all night long.
We'll get to that.
Okay, so I had to pick something that didn't have caffeine by this point in the day. So mine, I did a mix of, they had Gatorade and lemonade, and I think it was orange Fanta. It was some kind of orange soda. So mine was like a mix of those things, and it was really good actually. But that was what was in mine. So it looked mostly orange.
So we're gonna get some orange aquarium rocks for her Coke.
Cool.
Mine was Dr. Pepper, so we're gonna get some blackish brown aquarium rocks for my cup, and we're going to put them on display.
We
So
should
we're
get 3
gonna-
different colors in mine since I did the mix. We should do like yellow and lime green and orange.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay,
We could do it
so
that way.
this is how it started.
So these are super important commemorative plastic cups that we need to be able to keep forever.
Yeah. So the night was kind of crazy. I woke up and
Wait, did you tell them why we did this? Because
yes.
I was gone.
Yes.
You told them about.
Yes.
Did you make me sound like a jerk?
I guess you'll find out in the end.
I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't.
Basically, what we did was there was a compromise made that instead of doing the driving all the way there and doing all that what we would do instead would be we would take the we would make Rice Krispie treats. But like I said, I was crazy. So the stuff that you just saw, the pictures that you just saw was a compromise. I made her put the Rice Krispie pot on her head and pose with the Rice Krispies and all that kind of stuff. So that's what you just saw. Those 4 pictures is what you just saw. So that's what you just looked at. If it was confusing, it's because it was meant to be. But we decided to do it yesterday. So what happened was I woke up on the 8th and shaved, and then we got in the car and we were driving, and we decided we were going to buy each other. We were going to pick for ourselves. We were going to pick
Anniversary presents.
So we stopped at this store that I love called Just for Him. I'm sure I've mentioned it sometime in this show. We stopped at a place called Just for Him, and we looked at their hats, which is where I got this. I love their hats. This is a black suede Stetson. I love their hats. I always find one that I want. And we went through there and we didn't find anything. It was the first time I ever went in that store and didn't find a hat that I wanted to buy. It was really, really weird. So we went to the first place we had decided to eat. And they had an hour and 15-minute wait. And it was a place that we used to eat a long time ago, and one of our favorite restaurants in town. And they had an hour and a half wait. So we went to a different restaurant to eat. And
that was our current favorite restaurant.
That was our current favorite restaurant. And they were only taking reservations, and we didn't have one. I didn't even know the place took reservations.
I guess because it was a Friday night, they
Yeah.
get really. I don't know some places because of like COVID restrictions and stuff. Some places started doing reservations that don't always because of having to keep the tables. They have fewer tables now, So on busy nights they have to do reservations. But I didn't think of that. So anyway,
we couldn't eat there.
So that was strike 2.
So we ended up going to our new favorite pizza place called Papa's. And while we were waiting, I decided to pull out my phone and go to my favorite ring place, because you guys know I have rings on all the time. Go to my favorite ring place online and pick myself out a ring. And I quickly found that there was none at that moment that I was really excited about. So basically what happened was we decided, it was my idea, but we decided we get tattoos.
Over pizza. He was like, well, what if we got tattoos? And so we hadn't really talked about that in a while, and I had no idea what I would get, but I immediately started thinking, okay, what can I get?
I knew I wanted to get this.
Yeah.
Which, can I see?
They can see it, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says Cuck, which is her nickname. So I decided to get Cuck on my neck.
It's the nickname he uses for me. It's a term of endearment.
Yeah, it's the nickname that I use for her.
Yeah.
And it like ended up there after an evolution of years of travel. Started off as, because her name is Becca, it started off as Bucka, then it was Brucka, then it was Brecca, then it was...
It was Buckets. And Bruckets.
Then it was Bruckets.
Truckets.
Truckets had a little stint for a while.
I liked Truckets too.
I actually called her Fuckets for a while.
And
she didn't like that one very much. We went to Buck, and then to Cuck, and that's what stuck. So a lot of times I refer to her as Cuck.
And Cuckets.
And Cuckets for a while, but we landed on Cuck, so I call her Cuck often. So I got that on my neck. And then she got them. I'll make you show them.
Oh, okay. Well, this is going to be a little bit complicated.
Yeah, she's going to be a little complicated, but she's going to show them
with the shirt that I have on.
And the robe.
I don't know if I can get this. I have a lot.
You'll figure it out.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. It says Guardian's fighting partner. It's still shiny because we have a bandage still on it.
Still has the plastic on it. Yeah.
Still has a plastic bandage on it, but it says Guardian's fighting partner. It's a shield with wings.
Yeah.
And scroll, it says Guardian's fighting partner. If you were paying attention during season 2, then no, it wasn't season 2 actually. Well, if you know anything about Guardians War, then you know why she's referred to as Guardian's fighting partner.
That's on your blog too.
It's on my blog too.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link.
Be in Normal Street.
We'll put a link to the blog right down.
Oh yeah, let me write down the links.
We'll put a link to the blog that we're going to that calls her
the Guardians War. You have to be the Guardians War.
How about this? How about when I'm in the middle of a sentence, in the middle of the thought, you don't jump in and interrupt that thought in that sentence? How about we do that?
Well, we can try it, but I'm not going to make any promises.
Okay, anyway.
I'm going to write down the link. So if anything else you want to link, let me know. I'll keep it. Okay. It'll be easier if I do it now.
It'll be easier. Anyway, we're going to link that, and that'll tell you why she's tattooed with Guardians War.
Guardians fighting partner.
Guardians fighting partner.
I wanted something up here to be something that was like warrior related. This feels like a warrior spot to me.
So basically we did that, and then it's like we struck out here, we struck out here, we struck out here. Not the restaurant, not the restaurant, not the hat, not the rings. We struck out in a lot of different ways as we were starting our anniversary night. And as soon as we started to get the idea for the tattoos, things started getting weird. So we were going to go to one because it was late. It was like 8:30.
Yeah, I was like,
we were going to go to one in town. And we looked around in town and everything was closed. There was one that was open until 9, and we might have been able to slip in there, but they take appointments only. So I called a friend of mine in the book Teardrop Road. Her name is Hart, and she opened a studio, tattoo studio in St. Robert. So we called her. Found out she closed at 9 too, but we might be able to talk her to stay open longer because she knows us. So basically, we talked to her, and she said that she was finishing up a tattoo, and then she had to do a quarter sleeve, which is a big chunk of the arm. And so I asked her, I said, when could you start on us? And she said, midnight. I said, okay, we're on our way. We went and got our tattoos, and it took until 4, or almost 4.
And it was not in the direction of Tulsa.
Yeah, we had to go in the opposite direction of Tulsa. It's like an hour and a half in the opposite direction of Tulsa. So we got our tattoos there. I'm going to link their studio so that you can check out some of the work. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. And she did our tattoos. And then we got on the road. We came back. Since we were passing our house to come back, we stopped and fed the dogs and let them go outside. And then we got back in the car and took off again. I really didn't think she was going to be able to do it.
Yeah, he kept telling me I was going to like wuss out on him, and I kept telling him I wasn't. But... Well,
she had gotten up pretty early. She had taken a small nap, but she'd gotten up pretty early to see the kids off to school. So I was expecting for her to wuss out on the Tulsa trip again, but she didn't. We headed out there, and we stopped at a gas station. And she gets out of the bathroom, and I point at the knife stand thing. Display. And I said, which of these knives am I buying? Usually when I buy a knife, I ask her if I can have one. But this time whatever altar was getting it didn't ask. So we look, and she's kind of shocked because, I'm just telling her that we're buying one. And she's not used to that.
I was okay with it though.
But she's okay with it, but she's not used to it. So we decide on a black blade with a black handle. We go and get the girl at the register to come over and look, and I ended up getting this. There's only one altar that can ever open this thing.
Is it wrong?
We ended up getting this. It's gunmetal gray with a gunmetal gray blade, and it opens really fast. It's very heavy, and there's no reason for it. When we bought it, there's no reason for it. We didn't know who it was going to be for, because Assassin has a knife already, Guardian has a knife already, Shadow uses their knives. We didn't know who it was going to be for. And we didn't know why it was a big deal to buy it. I don't remember how much it was.
It wasn't very much, and it was our anniversary, so I'd get you a knife on our anniversary. That's fine.
Right, but it opens really fast and really well, and there's only one guy that can do it like that. I can flick it out like that, and everybody else, it's very difficult for them to do it. But one guy can just pop. And that guy's name is Ronan. He will come out, like you just saw him, be there for a second and be gone. He is, you may have read or heard, when you talk about the blog entry, beautiful monster. Well, that was Ronan. Ronan was created during the beautiful monster attack. So we're gonna link that in case you want to read it. Well, now he has his very own knife. I don't know when he's gonna wear it. I don't know where he's gonna put it. All the pockets are taken up with other people's blades. So I don't know when he's going to wear it or where he's going to put it, but I do know that now Ronan has his very own knife. Heavier and faster than everybody else's knife, but there it is. And it seems to be a thing where only he can open it properly without fumbling with it for a while. Okay, so what we're going to do, so we get to the place and we get a bunch of snacks and some breakfast, and my stomach was kind of upset. So I had to get something kind of gentle to put on my stomach. I'd been awake for a long time and just been eating pizza and drinking coffee and all that kind of stuff. I've been
drinking gas station cappuccinos all night, just trying to stay awake.
Big ones.
Yeah.
So my stomach was kind of upset. So I wanted to get something soft and gentle on my stomach. So I got 2 brats, jalapeno and cheese with chili on top, and a bag of Doritos.
It's a great breakfast.
It's great breakfast. Very easy on the stomach.
It's good, hearty.
And then
comfort food.
The Dr. Pepper.
And I got a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit, and also some Doritos on it.
And the sausage,
it
egg,
was
and
brunch,
cheese
really. I mean, it was brunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the sausage, cheese, and egg biscuit she got was massive.
It was big.
It was massive.
It was good.
It was like.
By then it was like 8:30 in the morning, and we hadn't eaten since the pizza. So it was
So so then
anyway, so we made it to Tulsa.
When we got done, there was this great sense of closure.
When we got back to Springfield,
there was this great sense of closure. One thing we did is before we left town, we went and parked in front of the old house and in front of Normal Street, and we started from there. We got back in town, we stopped there and we parked there and came home from there. And there was just really, we got this great sense of closure, like the war was finally over, right?
Yeah, it was like at the time back in 2000, whenever he had first suggested it, and I was like, I cannot do this tonight. There's too much going on, but I promise you someday we will go to Tulsa and get big gulps in the middle of the night. And then, we just never did. And honestly, it was a thing that we really hadn't talked about very much. It was just this crazy thing, and somehow we remembered it. But like leaving and arriving back at our old house on Normal Street was like the right way to do it, because that was the trip that I had promised him. And it did feel sort of like we were closing out this like chapter of our lives that had just like not quite been wrapped up, and there was this nice, like almost like this last loose end had been tied in and brought in, and it felt like, and I didn't expect that. That really surprised me. Anyway. It felt like this, just, finally closing the book on something.
And it felt like something new was about to begin. Mm-hmm. So we expect a change. Mm-hmm. We expect a new chapter in our life to begin.
Right. Yeah, when you're done with something, you're ready for the next thing. So
like I woke up today and there was a review for my new book. And I took that as a good sign. Mm-hmm. That happened the next day.
Yeah, that's true.
I took that as a good sign. Mm-hmm. I feel like my career is going to be moving forward. So I'm really excited about that. Okay.
Scorch is a great book.
Scorch is a great book.
Yeah.
Scorch is an intense book.
Yeah.
But okay. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to read I think 3 things from my blog.
Are they all on
not,
Normal
not
Street?
Not from my blog, and from Normal Street.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read 3 things from Normal Street, and like between each one, we'll talk about it, and then
we can link them too.
We'll link them.
Yeah.
But between each one, we'll talk about it. Come on in.
Hey.
What's up?
Are you recording?
Yeah, come on in.
Come on in. Are you here to tell us goodnight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Give me a hug.
Oh, crap. Good night. I love you.
Don't kill yourself on the chin.
I know, I just hurt my knee.
I want to show like one of you guys or both of you guys something in a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll take a break here. Are you going to be in the living room?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll take a break here just real quick and we'll come check it out. Okay.
So anyway, yeah. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're going to like talk anniversary stuff. We're gonna show the beginning of our relationship. We're gonna show some important things that got my career going where it's going, and then we're gonna show the day of our wedding. I'm gonna read you all that stuff, and we're going to take a look at this. And this is the anniversary
Celebration?
No,
Okay. I'm just trying to be helpful. Go ahead.
we already had this anniversary celebration.
Mhm.
Well, let's just do this. This is the anniversary I love you post that I'm going to give my wife. I said, the anniversary I love you post, because she wrote a very cool and keep it shut. She wrote a very cool one and so loving, and it was so don't lick my hand, this girl. So loving, and it was so tender, and it was so gentle, and no tickling. Anyway, this is my anniversary I love you, and this is my anniversary I love you, and I'll get started on it. I have to go see what my son wanted to show me.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna go check that out.
Get everything ready.
You come back and you can do your readings.
And I'll come back and do my reading.
Okay.
This one's called The New Girl. When I woke up, she was gone. When my eyes popped open, all I remembered was thinking, I have Becca. I remember her arms around me, remember the feel for her lips and the odd thing they did when I kissed them. I remember the funny way she phrased things when she was drunk and how the night before she'd gotten drunk for the first time. I remember telling her she regretted getting together so that with me to not be there when I woke up. I sat up. Becca? Nothing but the blood in my ears. I heard it again. The exact wording played itself out again, the tone, the confident way I felt when I said it. I had felt that I needed her to have a way out that was non-confrontational if she decided I was a drunken mistake. So I closed my eyes and let my exact wording run through my mind again. If when you wake up, you decide you've made a mistake and you'd rather be friends, just don't be here. Just get up, leave me sleeping, and walk away. Get in your car and drive off. And when I see you next, I will ignore that this ever happened. I will not speak on it ever again. We can go back to being friends. This never has to be an issue. This can be a wild thing you did one night when you were drunk. If you regret, don't be here when I wake up. And if you are here when I wake up, then we'll start a new life. But she wasn't here. Bathroom. I jumped up and ran to the bathroom. It was a short trip, half a room away. And I looked in, seeing Rebecca. Kitchen. I walked to the kitchen and looked in. The kitchen was so small, the refrigerator door only opened halfway before colliding with the counter. A stove and the oven hid behind the fridge. The entire kitchen was one very narrow stretch of floor about 3 feet by 5 feet. She was in none of those feet. I walked back to the bed and sat on its edge. I braced my elbows on my knees and held my head. I had been so convinced she would be there when I woke up. She would be hungry and need lunch. She would have studied my living room and seen all the things that decorated my house. She might have taken a shower. I wasn't sure, but I had been so sure she would be here waiting. Then I saw a flash of her face. She looked frantic. I stood. I closed my eyes and concentrated. Flash of her face again, her hands cradling my jaw. She was staring in my eyes. She was talking. I opened them and looked around, searching for a note. If she wanted to find paper in this house, she would have to go into my bag and find my composition books. I didn't know a lot about her, but I knew she wouldn't do that. I checked anyway. I closed my eyes again. I tried to focus. She had been talking. What had she been saying? You got to wake up, baby. You got to wake up. She shook my head. Are you awake? Can you hear me? She looked so scared, so out of control. I'm not changing my mind. I'm not. I just remembered I have to go to lunch with my grandparents. I'll be back as soon as I can. If you wake up and I'm not here, she kissed my sleeping face. I'm not changing my mind. I'm so happy to be your girlfriend. When a car drives on gravel, it has a bit of a grunt to it. The rocks churning under the rubber make a rumbling sound. When a car brakes hard on gravel, when a car is moving at a good clip and the driver is coming in fast, they slam on the brakes. The gravel snarls. The gravel outside my house was snarling. Car off, door open, door slammed closed. My apartment door burst open and there she was. The sunlight moved up around her, cradled her as if it wanted to pick her up and set her in my arms. I felt something move within me. I got myself under control as she stood staring at me. You weren't here, so I said, I tried to wake you, but here I am, wide awake and standing in the living room, and you were gone. I held it together so well. Tight check on my face, tight hold on my smile. Hold back the smile. Friends then? I said. She rushed the distance and I opened my arms to her. The rest is a romance movie without the lovemaking. We kissed. I told her what I had thought when I woke up and she was gone. She told me about the quickest lunch she never had in her life. We talked about the night before and she giggled a lot. It was the perfect, new, fun and funny, cute and cuter part of the relationship. This was before it all shattered and our hearts broke, before the breaking of it all and the pain, the confusion. This was before all of that. We wouldn't get to that for a long time yet. She told me the next part, and I felt my heart sag in my chest. I have bad news, she said. Well, it's not bad, just sucky for us. I wish this had happened earlier this summer, but this is what we have. Bad news? Are you about to break my heart? Is it Brett? What? She looked at me in confusion. Her face twisted a bit, and she shook her head. No, God, no, nothing like that. It's this trip. What trip? Well, before you and I got together, me and Bliss, we planned this trip to go see my sister Plan. She's my sister and she's at college I know who Plan is. She was friends with Les in middle school. She's actually friends with me now, kind of, sort of. She's going to freak out when I tell her we're together, Becca said. The trip, I said. I kissed her. Stay focused. She grinned and kissed me again. Okay, right, the trip. Well, Bliss and I are going to visit her. We're going to drive up there and see her and drive back. Okay. We'll be gone for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I said. I stood up and she grabbed my hand and pulled me back down. 2 weeks, then I'll be back. How long before you start college in Springfield? I said. Springfield was an hour and 15 minutes away and I had no car. I could not afford to make the long distance calls. 2 weeks after I get back from the trip, I'm headed to school, she said. How long before the trip? 3 days. Becca said. She winced. It's bad, right? You're telling me we get 3 days together before you're gone for 2 weeks? Then when you get back, you're here for 2 weeks before leaving for Springfield? It's not ideal. It's terrible. I have you for 2.5 weeks before you're gone? I felt that hollow place within me told as if someone had struck me with a bell. It had just struck me like a bell. I'm going to be gone. I'm not going to be gone. I'll be in Springfield. I'll come back every weekend, like I said. Until you don't, I said. It was all falling apart. Now let's take a break and look at what I was expecting. I had her. I had my dream girl. I held a place for her since our freshman year of high school. I had always been tied up with someone when she was free, and she was always dating someone when I wasn't. She had been the ship passing me in the night, and never did I think she would be much more. Becca was Waynesville royalty. Her family was the family. Her grandparents owned half the town. She was not only from a rich family, she was smart too. I had barely graduated high school. I was working 2 jobs to afford my shitty apartment. She was valedictorian. She was smarter than me. We all knew it. She was going to college and had a future. We all knew it. She was going off to do great things, be with better, smarter, and more artistic men. And I had her for the rest of the summer before that kicked in. My expectation was that after a few weeks back in college, she would get tired of the uneducated street rat back in Waynesville and find a more suitable person. I had her for the rest of the summer, and that summer was cut short by 2 weeks, cut 2 weeks short. Now, if I had been given 2.5 weeks straight, I could have maybe sunk in my claws in. She would have come back from college for longer than a few weeks, but that time was not straight. I would get her close, then she would leave, and I would have 2 more weeks to let her know how much I already cared for her before I lost her again. What I needed was a month. I had always been able to bind a girl to me within a month. If the relationship lasted more than a month, usually I was the one who broke it off. It took 1 month to become addicted to me. The first 3 days were a wash. Those might not even be there. That was wasted time because I could not get her in tight before she was gone. Then I would have her for 2 weeks before losing her again. This is never going to work. I would never be able to make her see. I needed time to make her see how crazy I was about her, how badly I wanted to be with her. I needed time to let her see me. None of that would be given to me. I'd already lost her. Let's not think about it. We have a lot to do today, I said. What do we have to do today? I have to introduce you to my family. I have to introduce you to the crew of Pizza Hut. We have a lot to do, so let me get dressed and we'll get started. She looked at me and bit her lip. You stay here. You don't get to watch me get dressed, she groaned. You haven't even taken me on a date yet. You don't get a free show, I said. She laughed. I'm a man of class. You can at least buy me the lobster first. I pulled the British flag that served as the door closed and jumped in some clothes. You can have the lobster, she said. I hate lobster. I poked my head out of the room and stared at her, mouth open. You've eaten lobster? I have. What does it taste like? If styrofoam was meaty, that's what it would taste like. I pulled my head back in. Well, I've never been a lobster guy. Don't think I've ever seen lobster meat, to be honest. But I know they live in tanks, just hoping against hope to get picked. For what? They don't know. She giggled. As she laughed, I noticed that when she ran out of breath, she laughed her way back in. She laughed on the inhale and the exhale. I'd never heard that before. I took her across the driveway to Rose and Mumble's house. Rose's eyes dropped on me, then scooted to Becca. She stared at her as we walked in before she pointed at her and said, You're Becca Lynch. This is my new girlfriend, I said. Your new girlfriend is Becca Lynch, she said. Becca, this is my mom, Rose. How long have you been dating? Rose said. I saw you yesterday and you never mentioned a girlfriend. Rose wrapped Becca in a hug. You're cute as a button, girl. Sit down. Can I get you a drink? We started dating last night, I said. Last night at that party you had? Yes. Did you get drunk? Rose asked me. No, I don't drink. You know this. Did you get drunk? Rose said, pointing at Becca. I drank for the first time last night, Becca said, and ended the night with my son. Rose handed her a glass of orange soda. Yes, but I've known her for years, I said. I've never met her. We didn't hang out much. She's Bliss's sister. You got drunk and woke up in a relationship, huh? Is that what you're going to tell your parents? Well, Rose, I'm sober now, Becca said, and we didn't do anything more heated than kiss last night. Your son was a perfect gentleman. Becca wrapped one arm around my arm and sipped her soda. Well, that is right. I raised a gentleman for sure. How long is this going to last between you two, do you think? Rose said. I looked at my watch. It's been 12 hours, Rose. So far, we're going pretty strong. So far, it looks like it'll last. Everyone laughed. I laughed. Becca laughed. Rose laughed. Her eyes didn't. About an hour later, I saw from my mother's window that Belle and Berg had just arrived in Berg's truck. They pulled up to my house and walked right in. They just walked into your house, Rose said. Yep, I said. I didn't even see them knock. They're my crew, Mom. They don't have to knock. I hugged my mother, kissed her cheek, and headed for the door. She hugged Becca. It was nice to meet you, sweetheart. Come back anytime. Rose said. Jesse? I looked up and she was beckoning me with her flapping fingers. She does this thing where she makes a hand as if she's about to slap someone and she bends the fingers in a flapping motion. It's her come here this instant and don't make me ask again gesture. Well, she did that. I walked to her and she grabbed my shoulder. Now go on, honey, she said to Becca. When Becca was gone, she turned to me. You don't have to pay for everything with her. What? The notion was so foreign, so bizarre. No girl had ever paid for anything when they dated for me. No girl even bought her own food. The idea of letting a girl buy anything was an insult to everything I had been taught. What do you mean by that? She's a lynch. I don't want you spending all your money. Let her buy for you. I was out the door. I brushed that off as ridiculous and caught up with Becca. I took her hand. She didn't even ask what my mother had said to me. She just let it go. So did I. When we walked into that house, Berg and Belle were waiting for us. Is it sticking? Belle said. Yeah, I think so. Becca giggled. There are rules, Berg said. This ought to be good. I dropped in my spot on the floor and Becca dropped down next to me. We're his droogs, Belle said. The droogs, I know, Becca said. You probably don't, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You're sweet. We all love you and Bliss, but we're for him, Berg said. Just be good to him. Second, we're his droogs, Belle said. You already said that, Becca said with a giggle. We're saying it again. You are his girlfriend, but that doesn't push us out. We still come here whenever we want. We still control the place when he's gone. Your friends will still listen to us when he's not here, Belle said. We keep order. Make sure no one messes with the place, Berg said. Now we are happy you two made it. You will be great together, but let's be clear. Your friends and your sister will take advantage if we let them. Therefore, when he is gone, we are still in charge. No one kicks her out, I said. If she says it and it doesn't sound wrong, you two make it happen. Done, Burl said. Look, Berg said. Listen, this place is sacred. It's safe ground for anyone who needs it. But people will take advantage. It's happened before. We had to set things right. We will do it again. If things get out of hand, even if you're friends or your sister, we will toss them out on their ass. Becca looked at me. Droogs, I said. They are my crew. They would take a bullet for me for them. Good. He needs friends, Becca said. Now you're all very scary, but you know me, have known me for years, so stop grunting at me. A few more hours and she's dropping me off at work. I introduced her to everyone and they were all very nice. When she walked out the door, the place exploded. You're dating a lynch girl? Court said. A lynch girl. Shit, she has an ass too, doesn't she? Guys, I said. Damn, boy, don't tell me you didn't notice, Bat said. Can't bear to watch it leave. Man, you got to name that thing. You're gross, Bubbly said. She leaned in close and hugged me. She is cute. Bubbly pointed at me and sneered. She is not better than you. Get in uniform and get in the back. I need boxes folded, Business said. She's a lynch girl and everything that comes with that, but that doesn't matter. You are Jesse fucking Teller. Don't be afraid to let her know. Court looked at me. What did she drive? Mustang, I said. Fuck, man. A Mustang and an ass like that? A rich girl and cute? Fuck, Jesse, you hit the big one. Stop talking about my girlfriend's ass. Business pointed at a stack of unfolded boxes. Fold, boy, she said with a smile. Congratulations, good work. Now, good luck. Now get to work. Lucky bastard, Bat said as he walked by. That was an ass. I was starting to get a little intimidated. Okay, so that was the chapter New Girl. I'm going to let you explain to them why you weren't there that morning. When I woke up, told you.
I get to tell what happened?
If you want to be in a relationship with me, all you have to do is be here when I woke up and you were gone.
Yeah.
So explain yourself.
Okay. So
waiting to hear.
So here's what happened was I woke up and I called my grandma and told her I wasn't going to make it to lunch and that I had just gotten a new boyfriend and we were going to spend the whole day together. And she said, that's no problem. I understand. Have fun. And I was like, cool. And I hung up. And then I talked on the phone to a friend, and I was kind of trying to kill some time and be quiet at the same time. And then there's a knock on the door, and it was my sister. And she had heard that I wasn't going to lunch, and she was upset with me about it. And she was like, "You are not blowing off your family for this guy." And I got a whole rant about the importance of family. And so she was very adamant about it. And so she pretty much pushed me out the door. I did tell her, I was like, well, I have to try to wake him up and tell him, because he's expecting, it's a thing, he's expecting you to be here, and I want to be here. So I did try to wake him up enough to tell him that I was going to be back and everything. And so I went with my sister. It was a big like Sunday lunch with extended family, and it was at a place that thankfully had a buffet. So basically I got there, got my plate, went to the buffet, ate, went around the table and hugged everybody and left. It was the fastest I'd ever done that kind of event. And I just was really trying to get back before he woke up, and I missed it just by a few minutes. But like, now we have this story, and I hate that he even for a moment thought that I had left, but it was just a hard thing. It was just one of those hard things,
So
that's my defense.
I've been giving her shit about it like ever since that happened in '97. I'll be giving her shit about it.
I'm never ever going to be able to live it down somehow. No matter, there's no amount of loyalty and dedication and love and solidarity or anything that is ever going to make up for those 5 minutes, evidently.
It was 4, and it's never going to happen. Now, I actually jammed the knife in my work too. If you remember, I keep talking about it, but the season finale of last season, we did back and forth readings.
Dueling Tellers, yeah.
We did the Dueling Tellers.
You want to put
and in that, somebody says they'll be there when this girl falls asleep, and when she wakes up, she's not there. So I didn't warn her about it. And she read it for the first time, and she's just like, and she looks at me, and I was like, yeah, I got you in my work too. So, okay. So after that, we went to my mom's house. So basically, I've been dating this girl for 12 hours. I've been sleeping for 11 and a half of them. And I bring her over to show her to my mom.
I hadn't met his mom before.
She met my mom
that day.
After 12 hours. So that never happens. Like, people who start dating, they don't.
At the time, it didn't seem that weird to me, but like, you're totally right. Like, you don't meet the parents that fast. But but that day I was just like, yeah, sure. Let's go say hi to your mom. That's great.
And
I was all in.
Yeah. So nobody but my mom realized that was weird. We were just like, yeah, for me. Well, yeah.
Of course.
We were that dedicated right away that I wanted to show her off to my mom. So my mom is showing signs of what's to come in the rest of Normal Street. First of all, she says, how long do you think this would last you between you two? Which is not something you ask the first day of a relationship. How long it's going to last.
It was a weird question.
It's a very weird question, and it shows a certain amount of unhappiness that my mom had that me and Becca were together.
Yeah, it was a bit adversarial.
Yeah. She was not happy about it. And that begins to show itself more and more in the book. She tells Becca to go on, and she brings me aside, and she tells me not to buy for Becca, which Becca's parents had some money. I'm not going to get into the finances of the Lynch family, but like, that was something I was taught from day one, when she started teaching me about women, that the man pays. So it was absolutely ridiculous. Well, I was working 2 jobs. I was working about 60 hours a week. And
he was making a lot more. I was a poor college student. I was just getting by on whatever college funding I had. And
I did have a lot of bills.
Yeah, you were making a lot more money than me at the time, for sure.
Every weekend she came into town and I just blew money on her. We shopped, we ate out all weekend, and I spent crazy amounts of money on her. And what I didn't spend on her that weekend, I saved for trips and visits to, we did a visit to Six Flags, and all that kind of stuff. So that was my mom's reaction. What I didn't realize is that you're going to have orange rocks in yours. And
I know, I thought of that too when you were reading it. That's funny because that was because of
the
orange soda that day. I didn't even think of that at the time. It's kind of funny though.
Anyway, then we go over to my apartment and the Joogs are there. Call them the Joogs because there was a gang in the movie The Clockwork Orange that was called the Joogies. And my group was called the Joogs. It was just me and Belle and Berg. And we all just, we hung out together the whole time. They had proven to be loyal friends. And so when I was not at my house, I allowed people to come to my house when I wasn't there, just to hang out. And Belle and Berg were always in charge. If I wasn't there, they were there to keep order.
Yeah, they were like the bouncers.
Yeah, they were like the bouncers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people hung out at that apartment all the time. And it got so bad that when I was at work, I would give a call to my house to see if anybody was there, because the rule was you can hang out at my house all you want, but if I need a ride home from work or to work, you have to give it to me. So I would call the house to see if people were there to give me a ride. So there was that. Let's see. Then I took her to work. And there is a lot of things about a woman that are beautiful. And like that can be appreciated. And me and some other people are obsessed with one particular part of a woman. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, I have to say, that was not on my radar at all. In fact, I was pretty surprised when he wrote that chapter and I saw that was the reaction when I left, because so like in the circles that I grew up in, you know, like there's a lot of focus placed on your chest endowment, and mine is very small. And so I had never really thought about what other asset I might have or whatever. I just thought that, you know, I didn't have like a very physically attractive sort of body. And so I just, you know, didn't put a lot of emphasis in that. So I was shocked whenever we did, at one point when we started dating, he started talking about, you know, what he liked about my body. And I was like, whoa, I was just surprised because I had never really thought about myself in that kind of a way. And I was surprised that it was something that was so noticeable, and also that I had completely missed. But anyways, so it felt good. I mean, to hear about, for sure, you know. It feels great to hear, you know, things about you that people find enticing or whatever. Yeah. It's fun.
And she didn't expect it. And she didn't know that guys even looked at that because of the circles that she ran in.
Right.
So anyway, we don't need to linger there.
So that was our first day together.
So that was our first day together. And that's what...
that was in August of 97.
That was August of 97.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we got together August 3rd of 97.
I think you're right.
So that was August 4th of 97.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's New Girl.
What are you reading next?
I think I'm gonna read Future One next.
Okay.
I'm gonna read Future One next.
Okay.
And this is well, I'm not gonna try to introduce it. You'll find out. Okay, so here's the next thing I want to read to you today. It's called Future Part 1. Belle stopped at the door. Good game, Jesse. See you tomorrow. Yeah, later, my Jude. I looked at Becca, who sat staring at me. What the hell was that? She said. Her eyes were wide. She seemed about to break into pieces and shoot off into the air at the same time. I didn't know if she was mad at me, but the look on her face did not speak of anger. It was something else that gripped her, but I didn't know what. What? What the hell was that? I've never seen anything like that before in my life. She stood up, then sat right back down. That was Dungeons and Dragons. A dark game for sure. I should have reined it in a little. That was bad. Not a good first game. Artist looked at her, but still didn't see anger. The game had been harsh, filled with darkness and horror, but it had bursts of brilliance, and it was not one of the greatest games I've run, but it was fun for me. Becca was experiencing something else. Did you get that from a book? She asked. No, not really. The rules are in a book, the races. The rule book has the stats for all the weapons and that sort of thing, but not the game itself. Where did the game come from? Well, what do you mean? What do I mean? She threw her hands in the air and shook her head. The story, the world, the characters, the whole thing. Where did it come from? Just made it up. You just made that up, she said, right then? The city's from a game I've been running with Bell and Berg. The characters were new, the story new. How did you know what was going to happen? I didn't. What do you mean you didn't? No. Well, I came up with the scenario and set you in it. When the game started rolling, I improvised. I sat down. I kept looking at her, trying to figure out if she was mad at me. But she seemed more shocked than mad. I did my own thing with my character. It was impossible to predict. Yeah, you're a great character, I said. She was good. She could be great, but I still didn't know if she had enjoyed herself or not. Are you mad at me? She leaned forward. And shook her head. She waved the question off. Listen, did you come up with that storyline before we sat down? Not really. I had no idea what I wanted to do with the game. How do you do that? Come up with a story like that? You just made it get up as you go along? Yeah, kind of. Been doing it for years. How often can you do that? I don't know, often. Why? Do you want to play again? You could do it again right now? Yeah. How long can you keep that up? The making it up as you go along thing. How long can you do that? Well, my record is 21 hours. I ran a game for 7 guys for 21 hours once. Dee's mom just kept bringing us pizza and we kept going. Holy shit. She sat back and shook her head. She looked at me and grinned. That's amazing. You're a genius. Artist giggled. No, seriously, you're a genius. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. I was right there. I could smell it. I could feel the wind. Man, that was insane. You can do that anytime you want, really? Basically, I've been playing D&D since I was about 7. I didn't have the money to do it the way you're supposed to, which is buy your game and run it out of a module. A what? It's a kind of prepackaged story that a dungeon master can run for his gaming group. Makes anyone into a DM. I couldn't afford to buy my games, so I just made them up off the top of my head. Played with anyone who would play. Just made it up as I went along. Now my brain is kind of hardwired that way. It can just spit up story anytime it wants to. Artist looked at her with a sideways glance. You're not mad, are you? She dropped on her knees and crawled to where we sat. She grabbed his hands and looked him in the eye. I'm not mad at all. You're a genius. You have a gift. We have to figure out how to get that out to the world. You can't just sit with that and play games. I pulled my hands away. They're more than games to me. She took my hands again. I know. I can tell they're real to you in a way nothing else is. Artist looked at her and touched her face. He wiped tears from his eyes and nodded. They're real. I know those characters. I know that city. I've walked it. I know. Listen, we have to find a way for you to make a living doing that. We have to find a way to get that out there. The world needs that. Artist scoffed. She shook her head. No, I'm not kidding. The world needs that thing you just did. She sat back and looked at me. What else? What else? What? What else aren't you telling me? What am I missing? I'm a writer, but you knew that. Yeah, but I've never read anything you've written. In high school, you ran that writers group, but I was never there. Can I read some of your work? I'll read it to you. I have terrible handwriting. Ever think about typing them up? No computer access. My stepfather has a computer, but it's a joke. I just write everything in comp books. I'll read you some if you want me to. We sat and read all night and into the morning. I read her stories, I read her poems, I read her little random things that no one else got to see or hear. I told her a story behind the complicated ones and how they came about. I let her see it all and she shook her head and sat back. Wow. I don't want to work at Best Western and Pizza Hut all my life, I snapped. I almost sounded mad. Almost sounded like I was yelling at her. The words had been trapped in me for so long. I felt as if I would die from them. I remember when I spoke them out loud to her, I was panting for breath. We were in bed, the lights were out, and I was holding her. The sun was coming up, but we had not slept yet. She hopped up, propping herself on her elbow, looking down at me. What would you rather do? I don't want you thinking I'm a grunt. I'm no grunt. She sat up. What do you mean by grunt? I mean that I'll be doing manual labor or sitting behind a hotel desk all my life. I'm not a grunt. I can do better than grunt work. Artist gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. I just don't know how to get things going. She took my clenched fist in her hand and eased it. What is it that you want to do? Literature. I kind of found myself in Miss Learman's lit class. I want to teach literature. English, American, Russian, I don't care. I just want to teach it. I looked up at her and right on the side, my heart was pounding, my breath coming fast. I was sweating, could barely focus on her face. You need to go to college to do that, she said. I know. I looked at the ceiling. I know I can't do it, but it was my dream. I didn't say you couldn't do it. I just said, you need to go to college to do that job. I know, but I can't get there, Artist said. When I was a kid, my mother told me about college. She said there were a few ways to get there. What did she tell you? She said that most college kids were rich and their parents paid their way. Artist laughed. I didn't have that. She said that some kids were so smart they got scholarships and the school paid their way. Not exactly how it works, but yeah, I get you. She said that some kids were lucky, were good at sports, and they got a full ride. The college paid for their entire education and they played sports. Artist looked at the ceiling and shook his head. The only other way to go was through the army. I tried that route, but everything kind of fell apart. It crumbled. And now that is not open to me. Okay. First of all, those things are, of course, true, but they're not exclusive. There are ways to get around all that. Yeah, well, Boothhill told me that. He told me not to go into the army, said it would break my spirit, said that it would kill the thing inside me that made me what I am. He said to take out loans and file for grants. But that was no good because by the time he told me that, it was too late. The counselors had already filled out all the applications and the loan papers. I'd already missed all the tests and the interviews. Now I'm working not one dead-end job, but two. And I don't even know what number to call to get an application, let alone file for a grant or a loan. I can't figure out how to prepare for an ACT test or even where to take one. This is not a problem, she said. It was flippant, like she was flipping over a stone or stepping over a puddle. None of this is a problem. I can get you around all of it. Artist did not allow himself to smile. He kept his face hard and just looked at her. He waited for her to laugh or throw in a but or explain some sort of mysterious impossibility that he could not do. He waited for her to say anything, but she didn't. She just looked at him. Finally, when she sat there quiet for what seemed like 4 straight hours, he yelled, "What do you mean?" "I know where to go to take the test. I can fill out the paperwork for the loans, the grants. All of this is fairly easy," she said. "I think you will still need to take the ACT. I think the cutoff age for that is 24. We'll apply at SMSU so you can go to the same school as me. But if they deny you, Springfield has a few other schools we can look at." She was talking more to herself than me at that point. I felt like a child being talked about by 2 adults. I just sat there, staring at her as the light of day grew in intensity with every passing moment, every passing word. My smile kept spreading. It seemed to be a smile comprised of light, as if hope shone from my body. The more she talked, the more I felt free and happy. It seemed now that I could have a future, that I was maybe going to be something. After a while, she looked at me and took my hands. "This is possible. I'll get started on it when I get back to Springfield. I'll get the paperwork and get things rolling." She leaned in and kissed me, and I kissed her back. I kissed the only hope I ever had. I kissed the one who could make my dreams come true, not by marrying me and working for me, but by finding that part in me that was dying to shine and pulling it out. She was not going to keep me as a housewife and expect me to clean her house and raise her kids. She wanted me to stand up, to find a better me and devote my mind to a future where I was learned and more than I was then, a future where I could be successful and control my own life. "What would you want to teach? What books?" she said. Her voice was cute, almost childlike. She was playing now, and I wanted to play with her. "My class will read Frankenstein. I already know what I want to say about it. I know the story. I know what I want to focus on and how to teach them the piece. I want to teach them writing too. Maybe when you get your job at whatever school, you can teach literature half of the day and creative writing the rest of the day," she said. And we dreamed. I explained the most magical moment in Frankenstein. She just stared at me while I talked. I could see it there in the bed on the mattress with her, staring wide-eyed at me while we talked. Talking about books that I loved and the tricks to writing that I would teach my students. I could see the class before me. I could see the future playing out before us. At that moment, for the first time in life, anything was possible. It was intoxicating, life-affirming. But when it became a reality, when the real raw power of the possibilities were open to me, it would drive me insane. It would rip me apart like I was looking at the sun. The future would burn me soon, but for now, in the light of the dawning of the coming day, there was a warm, soft glow. Okay, so that was Future 1. And Becca's going to do most of the talking for the explanation for this, mostly because Becca's going to do most of the talking for the introduction, for the explanation of this. It's her turn to talk. I'm going to do that thing where I interrupt her like she does to me, but we'll see where we go with that.
Do I need to put my hand over your lips?
I wouldn't.
So for me, that chapter was after the first time that I played D&D with them. And for me, what was different, I think that some of his players, I don't know, that their introduction to D&D was with him. And so he was the DM that they had. And then sometimes if they went and played with someone else, they would come back and always want to play with him. And they did, there were lots of people that understood that he was a very gifted DM. From my experience, I had just a couple of years before that, I had ran a character in a short D&D game with some friends of my sister's that my sister Bliss, at the time, the guy that she was dating was trying to get us into D&D, and he was a DM. And so he had said, well, I'll show you what it's like. So he ran us on kind of a short game. And it was basically like a group of us went out into a field and got attacked and fought a battle. And, then he was like, so, that's D&D. And I was like, okay, well, that was sort of fun. I don't quite understand what all the hype is about, but okay, I could see how that would be fun. But, there's just basically a lot of math. And so I had that as a comparison. And then when I played my first game with Jesse, I mean, the biggest difference was the role playing, and it was really emotional. It was really challenging, like improv acting, and there was a lot of emotion in it, and there was a lot of like really intense situations that weren't just, you know, show up and roll dice. It was, you know, the way he would describe things, the scenes, there were things that you were fighting for, things you were fighting to get out of, and you always had big decisions to make that were really revealing in a way that made you really explore the character, and not just what you would do, but what that character in particular would do. And so it really stretched your mind and your heart and your spirit in a lot of ways. And so it was a vastly different experience. So it was this huge contrast whenever that game was over. And I said, what was that? And he said, that was Dungeons and Dragons. And I said, that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, because, you know, I knew what that was. And so, for example, so that first game, it was really dark, and the darkness was something that appealed to me because I had grown up in a world where it was very much focus on the positive. And there are a lot of people who live that way. There are a lot of course, business practices that are that way when you're out in the workforce, when you're dealing with customer service, when you're whatever, when you're at church or whatever. There are a lot of circles where you have to just focus on the positive. And I had pretty much grown up very in that bubble where it was always focused on the positive. And the problem with that is that, you know, sometimes you have suffering and you have emotions, you have experiences that are hard to talk about, hard to understand, hard to process. And this was an avenue that made that okay. This was an avenue that gave you a space to understand suffering, understand pain, understand trauma, and understand how you can handle that and how you can react to that and how you can move through that. And I feel like the world needs more people who are at least not comfortable, isn't necessarily the right word, but aware maybe would be the right word. There are a lot of people who need more awareness in how to deal with traumatic situations, the aftermath of traumatic situations, how to be the kind of person that their friend needs, or how to be the kind of person that they need themselves whenever they're, you know, in the aftermath of that. And so what happened in that game, I was running with Belle. It was just me and Belle, and we, I can't remember how we ended up there, but it was in Dragon's Bane, and we got into the area that is run by Han. And Han is a villain in a couple of his stories. There's a story in Legends of Parallax where Han is the main villain, and Conan goes to see him. And then Han comes around in a book that's called Purgatory that is going to be much later, a few years down the road. But so, and he was the villain in the first game that Jesse ever ran me on. And while we were there, some really traumatic things happened. We were able to escape. In escaping, we got split up. And I went one direction, and Belle's character went a different direction. And I was really upset because of what had happened and how things had happened. And I met another character who had come and sort of helped me calm down and helped me get like a room for the night and a safe place to sleep. And then the next morning, I was looking out the window and I saw Belle's character walking down the street. And instead of calling out to him or running down to meet him, I just let him walk by, and I didn't want to see him. And during experience points, he asked me, he said, so why didn't you yell out to him? Why didn't you go connect with him? That was your friend. And I said, well, I just felt like if I went down there and talked to him, then we would have to deal with what had happened the night before. And I wasn't ready to deal with it. I wasn't ready for that to be real yet. And so, I mean, even through that, I learned something about it. And I learned something about myself, and I learned something about the recovery process. And it was just totally mind-blowing. And I loved the challenge of the acting on top of all of that. And so it was, for a long time, we tried to figure out how to give him an avenue for DMing, how to get his stories and his characters, and that sort of testing of boundaries and that testing of will, and exploring things in an unflinching way. And
well,
what do you want to?
When I first started playing with D, we played in 8th grade, and there was a constant thing that was going on with us where
she's thirsty. She gets some water.
There was a constant thing that was going on with us where every night after a game we'd lay in bed. He had a king size bed and we'd lay in bed. We'd talk about the game. It always came back to the same thing. It always came back to, how are you going to do this for a living? How are you going to be a dungeon master for a living? Because I was really good at it. And we knew it was my future. We just couldn't figure out how. Maybe you could charge people to run your games. Well, if you charge people to run a game and their character dies, then they can complain about that. So then you can't kill their character. Okay, well, maybe we can run games where you don't kill characters, but you can put them in situations and da 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 da. Well, if somebody was willing to pay like $40 to play a game with you, then they're going to expect to get the most powerful weapons, and they're going to expect to get the most powerful, all that kind of stuff. So that didn't work, and we couldn't figure out how I was going to do this for a living, and we talked about it all the time. And the idea of writing fantasy novels just, even though as a writer, the idea of writing fantasy novels just never kicked in my head until I was writing Chaste in 2004.
There were a lot of people who wanted him to write the games down. There were, there were a lot of people who were like, one day you have to write this down. One day you have to, Yeah. And even whenever you were living in South Towers, we were always like, well, one day you're going to write the books. What changed, what was so different was when he did start writing the books, they were sort of loosely inspired by the games. It was like the games developed the world and tried things out, and then the books are sort of, there's things that end up being a lot different in the books than anything that he ran in the games. But I think that all of the DMing, he still games to help develop. It's like his world developing, and it was really and he still runs games occasionally, but writing them out was really like the best avenue that we could come up with for how to get it out into the world, because it's like, no matter what you do, if people are no matter what you do, it's tough to figure out how to DM for a living, basically. And it became so much about like your world. Everybody who played with him is like, it's your world. You do whatever you need to with this, and there wasn't everybody wanted him to like write about the adventures and things, the storylines and things that happened. And there wasn't anybody who was like, make sure that I get co-author or anything like that. It was just like, because there's like so much improvising, and he takes what you decide and folds it into the story, and it's so much of it comes from you. So I don't think anyone felt like you like any kind of struggle with that.
The other thing is that like the events of the game might be in the book, and the names of the characters might be in the book, but the characters are usually very, very different than what was ran, and everything is so much more developed. And basically the character that was run by a player is inspiration for the character of that name that's in the book, but it's never like what they did or what they do or anything like that. It's always more like when we ran the game and I created Han, I used Han in the book, but it was all different. It was different how Han worked, and he did different things. And the scene she's talking about was never in any book, and never will be.
Right.
The character she played was never in any book and never will be. The character that Belle played is never in any book and never will be. there are characters that they've run in the past that are in books, but never doing the things that they did.
Yeah, the storylines end up being different.
The storylines always
like the storylines always end up being different. So one thing that we decided, it's still a different experience. Being a player in one of his games is still a very different experience than reading one of his books, because of the improvisation, and because it's like that he takes the things that you bring to the character and generates a storyline and an experience for you. And a lot of times he can kind of pick up on like what emotions you're working through and sort of play off of that and figure out how to put you in things that really test your limits and stuff. So we've still talked about the idea of like how to run games for a living. And we came up with this new idea that we've just talked about a little bit, and maybe it's somewhere down the road, but I was like, maybe someday we could have something that is like a sort of D&D like retreat experience. And so they're paying for like the room and board and the D&D campaign. So then it's not just like, well, I'm paying, so you do what I want with my character. They get like the full experience. That would include the food and the lodging and gaming every night for however many days. And then you could run the campaign. He's gotten to the point where he can, depending on how much time he can budget out, how much time the campaign needs to last and wrap up the story in that amount of time. And so, you know, they could do package deals where they do like a 3-day campaign or a 7-day campaign or whatever. Right. And he can figure out how to adapt a storyline so that it fits in the amount of time that they would be here. And we've done something kind of like that with some of our relatives who have come and visited for like a week, and we put to them like a week campaign. So like that would be something really fun that we could do.
As far as that goes, I want to talk about that for a little while.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that I'm doing now, the new material that I'm writing now is extremely involved. And I need a lot of development work. And so there's these 2 players, my niece and nephew-in-law. They live up in Milwaukee, and they come down before COVID. They came down once or twice a year, and they played games and helped me develop the world that we're playing in now and characters that we're playing now. So eventually, when things get really we start selling a lot of books and money's not a problem anymore, I want to kind of put them on a payroll where they come down twice a year and they get a monthly check. So, you know, nothing really big, but they get a check every month that will help them with their life. So basically, I have two players right now that I want to hire to be world developers for me, just to come down twice a year and put on a salary that basically they come down for once or twice a year. They play for a certain amount of time, and that brings in, you know, a certain amount of money for them every year.
And that's still what you use to develop new cultures and things like that, because his world is still growing. It's one of the things that he told me that first really early whenever we first started dating was that he always, one of the things about fantasy was that he always thought that it didn't sit well with him that a lot of times people would create a fantasy world and talk about it as a fantasy world, and it was really just one continent, or it was really just one culture. And he always had the dream that he would create a fantasy world that was the size of a world that had multiple continents, the continents having multiple countries, every country having, you know, its own sort of traditions and beliefs and cultures. And so, I mean, from very early, and he always said, if I'm going to do what I want to do, I'm going to need some kind of a timeline. I'm going to need to develop some kind of a calendar. Like, he always had this really big scope in mind, and it has been really amazing watching it like develop over the years. We've gotten to go in the directions that he wanted to as far as the scope, but that was something from the very beginning that he was like, I want to make a fantasy world that is the size of an actual world. And so that's always been the aim. And the games are still a really big part of that, because he does put there's a lot of variety in a lot of different continents and cultures and things. So
the reason I'm putting it in the anniversary episode is because this is our future. This is what we're doing now. I guess it's our present.
It's our present. It's our past. It's our future.
It's our present and our past and our future.
It's the fantasy factory. That's what we call it.
Yeah, that's what we call it. We call it the fantasy factory.
Yeah.
And everything leans in that direction, and everything is going in that direction. We have plans for when the books really catch on and we start making money. It's good to look now at where we are. And one of the things we always talk about on our anniversary is where we are now with my fantasy work and where it's going to lead and what's going to lead up to it. And what moves we can make now that will turn into something later. The last anniversary we had a couple days ago, we talked about the release of Normal Street, and we talked about the effect that's going to have on the fantasy work, and the effect that's going to have on our household, and the effect that's going to have on everything, because Normal Street is coming very soon. And so, like, we talked about that a lot. We talked about what we're going to do when we get there and how we're going to get there. It's something we talk about every year on our anniversary. So I wanted to bring it into the anniversary episode so that you could see one of the things that we use to talk about whenever we're celebrating our anniversary. That's it.
Yeah, we're dreamers.
Yeah, we're dreamers.
And we just keep dreaming.
Yeah. The dream is getting big. It's getting very big. Okay, so I'm going to read one other thing. I'm going to read a piece about the day we got married. It's going to include wedding photos and all kinds of really fun stuff. And so I'm going to read about us getting married, and then we'll talk about that, and that'll be the episode. So
I'm going to go back to coloring.
She's going to go back to coloring. I'll be right back. Okay, here is the sorry, here is the last reading of the night. We're going to, when we edit this, we're going to put pictures from our wedding in it. It's called Wedding Part 3. Part 1 and 2 are planning of the wedding, but this is Wedding Part 3.
Here you go.
And so here we go. It does have a villain in it. But most of our life has a villain in it. So here we go. Wedding Part 3, 2005. The day before the wedding, Hymnal, Becca's mother, looked me in the eye and shook her head. Marrying into this family won't make a difference. I won't feel any different about you than I do right now, she said. And with that, a smirk and walk away. That was how my wedding day started. Exciting, huh? After the wedding, she did say that she felt differently, but she didn't wake up. She didn't feel too much differently. So here we go. I woke up to donuts and Dee's instruction. He looked at me and he smiled. I got married months ago. I know. I gave you a kick-ass toast, I said. I remember. Listen, it was a better toast than your best man's toast. I don't think you'll ever forgive me for that. I need you to shut up right now, Dee said. I know what you're facing tonight. I have figured it all out. I will get you there, but you have to do exactly what I tell you to do. When? He reached into his pocket. Do you have the ring? I asked. He pulled it out and showed it to me. How did you know I would ask about that? I said, pointing at it. I know what you need today, he said. I laughed. Okay, I'm all yours. Now I have the entire thing timed out. Do what I say when I say do it. Done, I said. What comes first? Donuts, he said, pointing at the box. Just one. Can I eat it later in my stomach? Later, you'll be wearing a tux. You eat it now, Dee said. You have to trust me. And I did. I trusted him completely. I grabbed my donut and started eating. I want to talk to Becca, I said. I already called her. She's fine. She's up. She's eaten, and she's getting ready. She doesn't need anything and is surrounded by people ready to give her anything if she develops a need, he said. She says hi, and she loves you, and she can't wait to see you. I finished my donut. Bathroom, we have to shave your head, he said. We shaved my head, and I took a shower at his command. When I walked out, he had my boxers waiting for me with a t-shirt. I dressed in it and walked out of the bathroom. Second donut now, he said, pointing to the box. I ate a second donut. Now go get dressed. Don't try to put on your tux coat. When you're done with everything else, call me in and I'll put it on for you. I can imagine. I can manage, I said. Damn it, Jesse, listen. If you put it on, you will pull the rest of your clothing untucked. The shirt will come up. The vest will be wrong. You got to trust me, man. I've got this. We got dressed and all the guys were waiting outside when I got there. Some of them had stayed at the resort, but they were all standing outside waiting for me when I came out. I hugged them all, and they told me how great I looked. I was wearing black on black on black on black. Black shirt, black vest, black coat, black tie. My coat was long in the back and tapered on the sides. It made room for the bastard sword strapped to my side and the black grip of the brass crossbar and pommel. It swung at a perfect height, and I felt more real with it on at that moment than I ever had. All the guys were wearing their tuxes and swords, and they all looked amazing. Now, every sword hangs different, and every type of sword needs a different kind of frog. The frog is a system of leathers that holds the sword to the belt. I had gotten the proper frogs for every different kind of sword, but Berg was not happy with his. Berg wore a Viking longsword. It was perfect for him, but it hung perfectly vertical. And when he had it on and his tux jacket on, it rendered the sword invisible. The sword hung straight against his thigh, and it looked like he was the only groomsman without a sword. He was forced to pull back the coat and grip the handle, making it obvious he was carrying it. He thought this uncomfortable and annoying. How could I tell him that to me? It was comforting. All day, I watched him grip the handle of his sword as he walked around the wedding. He seemed ready to cut anyone in half if they stepped out of line. The only complaint he had about the wedding was the one thing that helped me stay calm all day. We drove to the lake house and Belle went out ahead of me. He found Flower, told her I had arrived. These two people, this groomsman and this bridesmaid, would have conversations like this all afternoon. Me and Becca had decided that we didn't want see each other at all until the very moment she was walking down the aisle. So we elected Belle for my side and Flower for hers to go ahead of us all day, announcing that the other was moving from one place to the next to make sure that either she or I were properly hidden. Job had a task that he performed very well. Every time I stuck my hand in his direction, he put a cigarette in it. He lit one for me and himself, and Belle would run to tell Flower we outside smoking, and the two of us would have a cigarette. I asked him at one point how many cigarettes he had. I was smoking more than I usually did, and I was concerned I would run out. He reached into 3 different pockets and pulled out 3 unopened packs of cigarettes. Then he shook the one at me that he had. You are set. I'm only smoking when you do. And I have a carton in the car. Do not worry about the cigarettes. I have you covered. All of the guys wore black shoes. I didn't want them to have to wear uncomfortable shoes, so I told them to pick out their shoes themselves. Belle wore dress shoes, Dee wore Doc Martens, Job wore Crocs, Berg wore Doc Martens, and Robert wore moccasins he had made by hand the night before. They wore black shirts with white vests and the black coat with a white tie. Dee wore a black shirt with a silver vest and a black coat and a silver tie. At one point, Plan came into the house we were in, and I grabbed her in a hug. She wore a traditional Indian sari with a silk scarf bound over her head, with her silk scarf bound around her head. She looked like an exotic gypsy, and she grabbed me and hugged me and squealed when she said that soon I would be her brother. Bliss was the matron of honor. She wore an Asian dress. Chanel wore a wedding dress. Flower wore a formal dress. And Cam wore a Native American dress she had sewn herself out of white doeskin. Every girl had arranged her scarf differently. Each one of them wore white. They carried their black fans instead of flowers. We took pictures. Our photographer was also a member of SCA, So he had taken so many pictures of swords and men carrying them. When he heard we were having swords at our wedding, he went nuts. He had all kinds of ideas for pictures we started taking them all. We took pictures for almost an hour, doing poses like being with my back to a groomsman facing off against the rest of the wedding party. We did one where we had our swords driven into the bench. We were looking across the lake at a target we were plotting against. It was a blast. At one point, Hannah stomped out of the house the girls were in and snarled at me. She pointed her finger. "You've done enough pictures now. It's time for the bride and the bridesmaid to do pictures. Go, get out of here." Well, the only problem with that was that the women were not close to ready. Most weren't wearing their dresses yet, and Cam hadn't even shown up. With the swords and the playing, Hymnal was just too irritated to allow my groomsmen and I to go on much longer. I did not fight her on it. I took it on the chin and let this woman yell at me on my wedding day. When my men and I retreated into the house, Flower showed up to tell us that Hymnal was dead wrong and we could take our pictures as long as we wanted to. Becca and her girls were not ready to close. We're not close to ready. They ended up taking pictures at the resort. I stood at the end of an aisle that intersected the middle of the main aisle. I waited there while everyone walked in and got into position. When Becca came, I met her at the halfway point to make a fool out of myself. I had come up with this idea. What if I presented her mother with a flower when I took Becca's arm? Bliss made a velvet black pillow, and I got a large, beautiful white flower, and I met them in the middle of the aisle. I was mic'd. I was going to get on one knee, present the flower, and say something flashy. Becca told me what was to come and warned me I should write a speech before that moment, but I'm better at ad-libbing, and I told her that Smear Lord of Ire would know what to say. She tried to warn me again, but I brushed her off. When I got there that day, I dropped on my knee. Dee showed up with the flower on the pillow, and I looked up at her mother to say my beautiful words. I looked at Becca out of the corner of my eye, and her warning came to mind. She was, in fact, too beautiful to think in front of. She had braided her hair in dozens of braids after dyeing her hair black. We had decided that instead of a veil, she would wear a traditional Egyptian headdress we had found made of white beads. She glowed. I'd never seen anything like it, and the dress that we had bought in '97 fit her perfectly. It had a cutout of a heart in the middle of her back. At that moment, I could not see because of the sheer sash that she wore. I will stare amazed at that image for the rest of my life. Smear shows it to me when things get dark at my desk and I need life blown back into me. Catherine stood up for me. Her leash was being held by Job, and she was dressed in a glittering collar. He kept a steady stream of tiny treats going to her, with pauses every 5 seconds. She looked at him at attention while the ceremony went on. Bliss had Morgan, but she was stingy with the treats, and he was not having it. He whined and he pawed and he whined some more. She gave him a treat every few minutes, and finally, in his frustration, he came to us. He laid down beside Becca and grumbled out his complaint. We took communion with a chalice that Dee had given me the night before. It was decorative and made of pewter and depicted the Archangel Michael defeating Satan and tossing him from heaven. He gave me the cup without even knowing we were taking communion. Everything just worked out like that. We did the tasting of the Temperaments. Becca had found this ceremony during her research. It was a variety of tastes that we were to eat before we said our vows to symbolize the different flavors of marriage. We ate something spicy, something sweet, something bitter, and something bland. She scooped her something spicy. I did a cautious dip. The music was played by a friend of mine from high school, Flower's husband, Doc. They sounded perfect. She came into Can You Feel the Love Tonight by Elton John. And we walked out to Drops of Jupiter by Train, as played by her two-man band. At the resorts, there were lots of pictures to be taken. And in a massive hall filled with 100 chatting people, Becca realized she'd lost her fan. It was black and gold and gorgeous. It was her bouquet, and she had put it down somewhere without realizing it. She came to me frantic, but I had no idea where it was. I walked up to a capable person and grabbed him by the shoulders and looked him in the eye. "What do you need?" Summit said. "Becca can't find her fan. We need it for pictures." He was no one official, just a guest that I had faith in. He nodded. He said he would take care of it, and he walked away. It was 5 minutes before he showed up again carrying that fan. I never got the story, but this is just the kind of magic that follows that man everywhere. Misty, Belle, and Chalice grabbed me at one point and said, "You have to come see this right now." I asked Becca if I could take off for a moment, and she said, yeah, they were doing family photos and brides photos and bridesmaid photos, and I had time. I ran off, and this group of people took me to see the Crystal Ballroom. It was dim, with little or no lighting save the white lights at the high table that the high table was draped in, and the lights of the stage. They had put a dance floor in the middle of the room and surrounded it with guest tables. Above our head table hung the family banner. Becca had, in the planning, had created a family crest for us and they hung it above where we would sit, draped with a long white sash. The cakes were perfect. One for her was a yin and yang cake. Then we had the groom's cake that was made of Rice Krispie treats. It was a castle with a dragon on top and a peanut butter whipped cream moat. The castle flew our crest. The tables were set with black cloths and white napkins. The tables were not numbered. There were 9 tables, and we chose a different white flower for each one. At the opening of the room, there was a table with name cards lined up by a flower. That was your table. The weapon stand was waiting with the ramp leading up to it and the ramp leading away. Everything was gorgeous. Everything was exactly how we planned it. There was a kink right as we were about to do our entrance into the ballroom. The wedding coordinator came up to us and said that for insurance reasons, he had to take the swords out of the room after we placed them. Becca snapped at him that they would do no such thing. We will place them in a closet nearby so that no one can touch them or get to them during the party, the man said. We told you this was a deal breaker, that the swords would never leave our sights, that no one would ever touch them. We want pictures and we want people to be able to come and look. You're not taking them away. We have a contract. No one fucks with a bride on her wedding day, insurance or no insurance. The funniest thing was the entrance. When the wedding party walked in, they stood behind their chairs, waiting for us to arrive. When we got there, we all sat as one, but before we did, every groomsman wearing a belt, a frog, and a sheath took their belts, frogs, and sheaths off and dropped them on the floor behind their chair. It sounded like thunder, it was so loud. The hollow risers that the table had been set upon echoed loudly and everyone jumped. We ate our salad course, and our guitarist came out with a single chair in the middle of the dance floor. As we watched from our risen chairs on his guitar, he performed Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. It was breathtaking. It felt to us as if we were royalty being sang to by a gifted bard. At one point, the coordinator approached Becca and asked if everything was as she wanted it. Everything is good, she said. It's going well. What do we have to do to make it perfect, he said. She laughed and said he was right. That was perfect. We danced the first dance, and at the end, without any choreography or planning, we performed an impromptu flourish and bow. I spun her out facing one side of the room, and she curtsied and bowed, and I bowed. I took her in, and without planning it or even knowing what we were doing, I spun her out again. This time, she was facing the opposite side of the room, and we did a curtsy and a bow. We danced to Make You Feel My Love, the Bob Dylan version. Karaoke was immense. It took over everything. My bride got on stage and rapped Lose Yourself by Eminem. Belle, Berg, and I got up and sang Can You Never Even Call Me By My Name by David Allan Coe. I sang Born to Be Wild with Job, and Lioness and Tigress got up and sang Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. I joined them for a while, but Dolly's out of my range, and it was just coming out chicken scream, so I walked away. I danced the mother dance with Tigress and Lioness's mother, who I will call the Queen of Cats. She's been there for me all my life and sided with me on all of it. I danced half the dance with her and half with Dee's mother, another powerful woman from my life who always backed me and was nothing but kind and loving to me every day she knew me. We got to our suite. We were too tired to open the care package they had left for us, too exhausted to light the romantic candle they had set out, and too sleepy to break open the champagne they had given us. we had our wedding night that I'm too much of a gentleman to tell you about, but blew my mind. And we collapsed. We slept the sleep of the weary. We slept the sleep of the victorious.
What? Ain't no raisins?
Yeah. Okay.
They're anniversary raisins. They are.
Yeah. So that was our wedding. We were doing this thing when we were planning it that I would wake up in the morning. She'd have been up. Well, I'd wake up in the afternoon. She would have been up researching wedding stuff. I remember one day she came up with the idea to have all the bridesmaids wear white.
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Well, so there was a couple of problems because I had a hard time coming up with wedding colors. And every time I'd come up with colors, I'd change my mind. And so I decided to try to just go with black and white. So our wedding colors were black and white. And then we had like a little bit of silver and gold things that were kind of accents, and like the swords had some, metal on them and stuff. But I mean, so then I was trying to figure out
the best man's
his vest and stuff were silver. Yes, we decided like we would have sort of, a little bit of silver and gold if we needed accents. But so then the question is, how do you come up with dresses? And we didn't want everybody wearing black. We decided to have basically my side wearing white and his side wearing black, like mostly. And then his side had a little bit of white and my side had a little bit of black. So it was sort of like a yin and yang kind of treatment. And because of who my wedding party was and where everyone was living, we were all very spread out at the time. So my sisters lived in different states, and I did have 2 wedding party members that were in Missouri, in Springfield, but it was going to be really hard to try to get everybody somewhere to get fitted for a dress and make sure it was a dress that looked, that looked nice on everybody. There's a lot of different kind of ways to do that. And so what I decided was we wanted to do a wedding that was kind of original and also kind of traditional, because we wanted to just like kind of look into blending a lot of old traditions together and make something that was ours, that was unique and made sense to us. So we did a lot of research when planning our wedding. We did a lot of research into different wedding customs and traditions and from all over the world and different parts of history. And so that was one that I found, was that the bridesmaids would all dress the same as the bride, so that if evil spirits tried to come and curse the wedding, they wouldn't know which woman to curse. And so as soon as I read that, I was like, I love that, because we really need to throw off the evil spirits and make sure they're confused. So it was kind of weird. And some people thought that I was nuts. They were like, you have to be the only one wearing white. And I was like, no, this is going to be cool. And so what I told everyone, I told the ladies in my party to wear a white dress and pick out whatever kind of white dress they wanted. And I wasn't going to tell them, what to do, just to wear white. I told them I was going to have like a black and white scarf that they could decide how to wear with their ensemble. And I just left it up to them. And this really amazing thing happened that went along really well with how we were planning the ceremony, was that the different women all picked styles of dress from different cultures. And so we had an Asian style dress and a Native American style dress and an Indian style dress, and then 2 different more modern contemporary dresses. And I just loved the way that worked out. And so anyway, that was why my girls all had white dresses. But I loved it. I just was so happy with how it worked out.
Yeah.
And the guys with the swords looked great with the tuxedos. That was controversial too. Everybody thought we were nuts. We said, we're going to have swords. And they're like, oh, you're doing a medieval style wedding. And we're like, no, they're going to be wearing tuxes. And everybody thought we were nuts.
Yeah, nobody thought that would work. But there was one guy who came up to me afterwards, Bravo. He came up to me afterwards and he was just like, I finally understand what the groomsmen are for. He goes, they're the knights of the wedding. And basically, well, we had done some research on groomsmen, and basically, the way that it used to be was like, the man would go to another tribe and steal a bride, bring him back to his tribe, and marry her as quick as possible. And he had a group of friends with him that if her people came back to steal her back, they would fight them. And so with me having so many enemies of my family and stuff like that, I told my guys to be on the lookout for that and to watch for people that I wouldn't want there, and to remove them with force if necessary. And so the fact that they were all wearing swords really accented that factor of the whole.
And luckily we didn't have any.
No, we didn't have any problems with that.
We weren't sure like what kind of rumors might have been churning and who might have decided to show up and speak their mind or whatever. But luckily we didn't have anything like that. It was a wonderful day and everyone was really supportive and positive about it. And it was like easily one of the greatest days of my life. I felt like a queen. I really felt like a queen all day. It was really empowering and really magical. And
yeah, it was like no wedding and anybody had ever seen before. And a lot of people came up and mentioned that. A lot of people were like, thank you so much for inviting me to your wedding. And I've never seen anything like this. This is the greatest wedding we've ever seen, and stuff like that. And it was just basically because we took the time to plan it. We took a year to plan it.
And we planned it together. We planned it together. Yeah.
A year and a month.
Yeah.
And we did. We planned it together.
So every part of it, we talked through and came up with something that we both were excited about. So it ended up being like a really authentic experience that represented both of us, and everyone appreciated that.
Yeah.
It was just like evident in all of the details. So it was just amazing. It was really
okay. So we're gonna cut off the video there. So do all the things.
Thank you.
And
for your anniversary post.
Yeah, and this is my anniversary video.
16 years.
16 years. 16 years. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Do all the things, and I will see you next week.